Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Dr. Ahmad Fauzi from the Department of Food Service Management, UiTM Cawangan Selangor, Campus Puncak Alam. I am here today representing my fellow researchers, and together we will explore on the topic of the effects of COVID-19 pandemic towards the operation of independent food service establishment, a qualitative approach. First off, I would like to deliver the outline of our presentation. Now, the first part is the introduction to the research. The second part is a little bit on literature review. The third part would be our research methodology. The fourth part would be some explanations on the research instrument. The fifth part is the summary on data analysis. The sixth part is on the finding and discussions. The seventh part would be a summarization of the research. Lastly, on the eighth part is the conclusion, provide closure to the research. As we all know and aware, the COVID-19 pandemic had left a devastating effect globally. As many as 15.3 million people were contracted with the virus, and nearly 630,000 people died because of complications due to the virus. Crucial steps were taken to prevent further spread of the virus, such as nationwide lockdown, social distancing, closure of offices, business, schools, and universities, obligations to wear masks, use of sanitizers, and working from home or online, and many more. In terms of restaurant business, during the peak of COVID-19 pandemic, all of them were forced to be closed down to dining in. Although they still can operate via food delivery services, the closure of the restaurant had really impacted the restaurant in many aspects. Hence, my fellow researchers and I had decided to delve more into the issue and outline two research objectives. The first one is to explore the effect of COVID-19 pandemic towards the operations of independent food establishment, and the second one to discover independent food establishment operators' strategy to cope with COVID-19 pandemic aftermath. First, on literature review, is a little bit of the definition of independent food establishment, which is a restaurant owned by an individual or private group where the restaurant's concept, menu, and experience are unique and not part of a chain of franchise restaurant. Some industries, especially those which requires direct contact with customers, such as service and hospitality industry, were greatly affected by the lockdown following the pandemic. The whole operations were affected, and then ultimately they suffer financially. However, in the face of global catastrophe, some business tend to prosper. Food delivery services, such as Foodpanda and GrabFood, third-party logistics services, such as Lalamove and NinjaVan, and online shopping firms, such as Shopee and Lazada, are just some of the companies that took advantage of the lockdown and were thriving during the crisis. Moving on to research methodology, this research is deemed qualitative in nature, as it emphasizes understanding through examining the phenomenon by observation of people's words and actions. Done in a non-contrived setting, this research utilized semi-structured, in-depth interview to a collection of 10 respondents from three key areas, which is Kota Kinabalu, Kota Tinggi, and Batu Pahat. The unit of analysis are independent restaurants represented by the restaurant owner and or operator. All of the respondents were selected using the combination of purposive and snowball sampling. All of the interview were done face-to-face, and the audio were recorded with permissions from the respondents. The interview were also guided by an interview protocols, which also include a list of interview questions. Before the interview, set of official documents which consists of number one, a consent letter, number two, letter of authorization to conduct research works, and number three, a copy of the interview questions were sent to the respondents for approval. Upon approval, appointments were set at the respondent's selected venue and time. The interview was done with the aid of four main instruments. First, the interview protocols. Second, the interview questions. Third, the audio recording apparatus. And fourth, last but not least, side note taking, just in case. The audio recordings were then transformed into interview transcripts and sent back to its respective respondents for validation. After it is approved, The respondent will sign on the transcript and send it back to us for analysis. As you can see on the slide, the interview questions were divided into two sections. The first one is section A on demographics, and the second one is section B on the effects of COVID-19 pandemic. On the table, each of the question item is mapped in line with the specific research objective they intend to address. After the interview transcripts had been validated, double-checked, and signed, then only it will be ready for analysis. First, the transcripts will be registered into atlas.ti. In this case, is the qualitative analysis software of our choice. The transcripts underwent thematic analysis, where codes, themes, and networks were derived to make sense of the conversations from the interview. As a result, apart from the demographic set of data, we were able to reveal themes and two networks based on a total of 12 codes available from the thematic analysis. Theme 1 represents the effect of COVID-19 pandemic towards the operations of independent food establishments. There were 5 codes on total with different range of groundings. The 5 codes are 1. Amend operational hours, 2. Less customers, 3. Less profit, 4. Reduced manpower, and 5. Way of doing business. Figure 1 is drawn to show the networking between the theme 1 and its codes, minus the quotations, which ground each codes into existence, just so it will fit into the slides. Moving on to theme 2, it represents the strategies undertaken by the independent restaurant owner or operator to cope with the aftermath of COVID-19 pandemic. Theme 2 is comprised of 7 codes, namely, number 1, changing ways of acquiring stock, number 2, continuous promotion, number 3, way to sustain business, number 4, enhanced marketing effort, number 5, government incentives, number 6, maintaining product quality, and number 7, reduce cost and wastage. Figure 2 is drawn to represent theme 2 and its codes, and again, the quotations were omitted from the figure to make it fit in the slide. Anyway, from table 3, you can already see how many quotations were there to support the creation of each code. As a recapitulation, this research was done to achieve two main objectives. Number 1, to explore the effect of COVID-19 pandemic towards the operations of independent food establishment, and number 2, to discover independent food establishment operators' strategy to cope with COVID-19 pandemic aftermath. These objectives were achieved by conducting a qualitative research, implementing a semi-structured interview upon 10 respondents. As a result, two themes were uncovered, comprised of a total of 12 codes, supported by varied numbers of groundings or quotations. Theme 1, the effect of COVID-19 pandemic towards the operation of independent food establishment, comprised of 5 codes. And Theme 2, strategies to cope with COVID-19 pandemic aftermath, comprised of 7 codes. All of the themes and codes have been explained previously in the findings and discussions section. For more information, you can contact the corresponding author of this article, which I believe is available in the proceeding of this conference. In a nutshell, every food establishment all around the world were badly affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, one way or another. When the pandemic strikes, many of the establishments were unprepared, leaving their operation paralyzed. We pushed through the crisis and we made it. After the vaccines for COVID-19 were distributed and the pandemic had diminished gradually and significantly, food industry worldwide began to heal. However, things are not the same anymore. So much things needed to change as to adapt to the new norms. Thus, this research was done to explore the effect of COVID-19 pandemic to the operations of independent food establishments who had survived the plight. This research had also managed to reveal the restaurant operators' strategies to survive the aftermath of the pandemic. Hopefully, the findings will serve as a lesson and as a reminder to the stakeholders so that we can learn from it and prepare ourselves from any future predicaments.